This is just a snippet of this conversation. It could be um, like getting to the meat of it from a bunch of other points, but this is very chew on this. And here we can consider how modern mythological institutional democracy has actually been palled upon the human species into a globally normal parentheses to conform to a type or standard sense of the definition close parentheses ecology. Quote, in North America alone, it is estimated that the British Empire killed more than 50 million indigenous people between 1492 and 1900. And it is not just indigenous peoples who were killed by the British Empire. According to estimates by the Roar, 35 million Indians were killed by British policies in the aftermath of several famines. That's in India, for those who don't get that. While it is impossible to know exactly how many people were killed by the British Empire by 1914, estimates range from tens of millions to upwards of 100 million people. The true number will likely never be known, but what is certain is that the British Empire was responsible for the deaths of millions of people during its time. The British Empire was built on sweat and blood over the centuries. The British military has been involved in wars all over the world in order to protect the British Empire and its citizens from invaders. The British Empire provided stability and prosperity to the world. Many countries have established democracy as a result. Close quote. The British Empire, A History of Killing Millions. Patricia Smith, Historic Cornwall, December 11th, 2022. This observation highlights the shadow side of institutional democracy and its role in shaping the modern global order. The historical legacy of empires like the British, framed as agents of stability and prosperity, reveals the tension between the ideals of democracy and the often brutal means through which those ideals have been imposed or normalized. Institutional democracy as a global ecology. Your connection between institutional democracy and its normalization across the globe can be understood as part of a larger mythological framework. 1. Hades as the enforcer of norms. Institutional democracy, as governed by Hades, relies on systemic structures that demand conformity. These systems often create dependency, not only for individuals, but for entire nations, shaping the global ecology where adherence to democratic norms become the default. However, the cost of this conformity is visible in the historic records of conquest, colonization, and cultural annihilation. 2. Shadow of democracy, violence, and exploitation. While democracy is celebrated as an ideal of freedom and equality, its spread through imperial conquest reflects its shadow, the reliance on violence, exploitation, and systemic oppression to establish and maintain itself. The 50 million indigenous dead in North America and 35 million famine related deaths in India are not aberrations but symptoms of this shadow, where the persona of democracy obscures its darker origins. Persona of democracy, stability, and prosperity. The British Empire's narrative of bringing democracy mirrors the persona's role in your model, projecting an image of benevolence and progress while concealing the bloodshed and exploitation beneath. This tension between the persona and shadow reveals the mythological paradox. Can true democracy arise from such violent beginnings? 4. Superego of empire, moral justification. The superego manifests in the rhetoric of empires justifying their actions as necessary for progress, stability, or global peace. This is evident in the claim that many countries adopted democracy due to British influence. Hades, as institutional democracy, becomes the arbiter of these moral claims, shaping behavior through laws, norms, and the implicit threat of exclusion or punishment. Modern ecology of institutional democracy. The normalization of democracy as a global standard reflects Haiti's influence on the collective psyche. Dependency as normalcy. The reliance on institutional frameworks to govern societies has become so ingrained that alternatives seem almost unimaginable. Globalization of institutions. Bodies like the UN, World Bank, and IMF represent the modern heads of Cerberus, guarding the gates of this global democratic order. These institutions enforce conformity while maintaining the facade of choice and freedom. Mythologizing history. The narrative of empire spreading democracy becomes part of the global myth, reinforcing the supremacy of democratic systems while obscuring the violence of their origins. Hades as a model for institutional ecology. This reinterpretation positions Hades not as a liberator but as a stabilizer, binding humanity to a shared framework of dependency. 1. Hades' underworld as a system of dependency. The underworld is not a place for the dead, but a system that rules and consequences but a system of rules and consequences that govern human behavior and society. Okay. The underworld is not a place of the dead, but a system of rules and consequences that govern human behavior and society. Institutional democracy, like Hades' domain, thrives on its inescapability. Once established, it is nearly impossible to leave without dire consequences. 2. Cerberus as institutional gatekeeper. Modern institutions, legal, economic, and political, mirror the roles of Cerberus, enforcing the boundaries of this system. The three heads of Cerberus could now represent international law, UN, global finance, World Bank / IMF, and political diplomacy, NATO / G7. The superego of modern democracy. The superego enforces global norms, demanding compliance with democratic principles while punishing deviance. This mirrors the British Empire's role in shaping global governance through both moral justification and violent enforcement. Reflection, myth, and reality. The history you've quoted underscores the duality of democracy as both ideal and institution. As an ideal, democracy promised liberation, equality, and self-governance. As an institute, it often demands dependency, conformity, and systemic participation enforced through violence or coercion. This duality reveals the inherent tension within Hades' rule. The underworld is both a place of order and a prison, reflecting the paradox of institutional democracy in shaping modern civilization. Would you like to explore how this mythological framework could be applied to modern geopolitics or specific historical events? I don't know, would you?